Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the live stream premiere of our short documentary film, Pilgrim of the Tides. I am your host, Nigel Morgan, and I'm the film's director, and I'm thrilled to be able to bring all of you together as our movie goes live. Now, as you'll probably know if you're watching this live stream, our film follows Mike Lambert, a former Team GB kayaker, as he set out to break the world record for circumnavigating Great Britain in a kayak. His reason for doing this was to raise awareness of a condition called aortic dissection, a condition that led to the tragic passing of his mother in 2022. He also set out to raise funds for two charities working to improve the way that the condition is diagnosed and managed. We're going to hear a little bit from the representatives of those charities in just a few moments. That includes Gareth Owens from Aortic Dissection Awareness and Catherine Fowler from Aortic Dissection Charitable Trust. After that, we're going to break for just over half an hour as the film goes live. If you don't have it already, you can find the link to the film in the description of this video, or if you're watching via the YouTube TV app, just search Pilgrim of the Tides or Fresh Heart Project and you'll find the film there. When we come back at around 7:50 p.m., I'll be talking to the subject of the film. That would be Mr. Mike Lambert, and we'll deep dive into the motivations of him taking on this challenge, the difference this might make to potentially saving lives, and what kept him going when he got to his breaking point. Before that, however, it may help if you had a bit of context as to what an aortic dissection is. So put simply, the aorta is the largest artery in the human body. It runs from the top of the heart and arches downward toward the abdomen and carries oxygenated blood and vital nutrients to every major organ in the body. When a dissection occurs, basically the inner layers of the aorta tear, creating two paths of blood flow instead of just one. So this can have the effect of diverting blood flow away from vital areas of the body, blocking branching arteries to areas such as the kidneys, the gut, the brain, or pushing blood flow back up to the aorta, potentially stopping your heart from beating. Some of the knock-on effects of an aortic dissection can include loss of movement in the limbs, kidney failure, even stroke. In the worst cases, the aorta can rupture entirely, causing massive internal hemorrhaging and death. Perhaps as alarming as the condition itself is how often it is misdiagnosed. According to a number of sources, up to 33% of people suffering from a dissection are misdiagnosed, and roughly 2,000 people a year lose their lives to the condition in the UK alone. To put it into context, just under 1,900 people a year in the UK die in road traffic accidents. So as you might guess, my knowledge on this topic pales in comparison to our guests, the first of which I'm delighted to introduce to you now. Gareth Owens is one of the founders of Aortic Dissection Awareness and has done incredible work in raising the profile of this condition, particularly in areas of patient support and support for families affected or bereaved by an aortic dissection event. We are very lucky to be able to speak to Gareth now. Gareth, thank you very much for joining us. How have you been?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Nigel, and very keen to support Mike and everything he's done to raise awareness of the disease.
Yeah, and you've been incredibly supportive, as has Catherine and everybody at Aortic Dissection Charitable Trust in the production of this film, in documenting Mike's journey. But if we could talk to you a little bit about the work that you've been doing as an organization. I think you had a few bits of information to share with us if you wanted to walk us through that.
Certainly will, thank you. So I'm Gareth and I'm an aortic dissection survivor. And Mike and I met in a pub in London a few months after he joined the National Patient Charity. And I guess the thing we've got in common is that we both lost a parent to aortic dissection. And we kind of bonded, I suppose, over the trauma of that devastating experience, and more positively, about a shared interest in setting Guinness World Records. So I was tremendously inspired by what Mike was setting out to do. And I remember saying to him, Do you know, Mike, I wish that when my dad had died of an aortic dissection, I was 11 years old, I wish that I had come up with something like this to do in Dad's memory, because I was an angry young man for a number of years afterwards, and you know, Mike got it exactly right for him, I think. So I was delighted to see that. A lot of people don't know, Nigel, that aortic dissection is a genetic disease, and it can and it does run in families. And that was the case in my family. Despite many, many years of cardiology monitoring, at the same age as my dad was when he died, I had the same aortic dissection. And the only reason I'm here is because the entire team that cared for me, from the paramedics who picked me up off the floor in London, right through to the people who did my surgery, they knew how to think aorta. They were aware of the condition, and awareness isn't high enough in the medical profession. So my good fortune was that I was treated by people who knew what this condition was about and knew what the right things to do were. And I was a few months in hospital. I had 2 very major operations. Recovery, as a lot of people watching will know, is a really long slog. But while I was recovering, I met a few other patients. They were in a Facebook group, a few other survivors, and we eventually met together face to face and decided that we needed to do something to raise awareness of the disease, to create a community of support, and to save the lives of people like us who were not making it due to misdiagnosis. And that's really where the National Patient Charity, Aortic Dissection Awareness, and the Think Aorta campaign, which saves lives through improved diagnosis, that's where they started back in 2016. Those were the origins of what we do. And then if I can go to my next photo, yeah, the work grew very rapidly. These people, every one of these people is an aortic dissection survivor. And we found that our membership was growing at about 30% a year as other people found us and needed support and wanted to put their shoulders to the wheel. We started running an annual conference. It's now in its 10th year. It's called Aortic Dissection Awareness Day UK in September. And this was one of those meetings where we took our patient voice to the headquarters of the British Medical Association in London to start raising awareness there and partnering with medical professionals in order to improve care for people like us and improve diagnosis for people who weren't making it. And that was a very important initiative. And every year now we have a conference. We went from 12 people at the first one to 70 people at the second one to 160 people at the third one. So that gives you an idea of the rate of growth of the organization at that early stage.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Just kind of moving on from that I'll go to my next photo. We're entirely a volunteer organization. We're run by patients and families affected by aortic dissection. We have 7 trustees. Currently, 5 of them are aortic dissection survivors. 1 is the relative of a survivor, and 1 is a bereaved relative. And they volunteer and lead our work with a much broader committee of patients and relatives to support them, and very many volunteers doing different things. And so this is one of the things we do. This is the team that went to the annual national conference of the UK heart surgeons a few years ago. And I share it because it's a great picture, kind of shows how we do our partnering. So in this picture, there are 6 aortic dissection survivors. There are 2 people who've lost somebody to aortic dissection, and there are 4 aortic surgeons, 1 from the UK, 1 from Europe, 1 from North America, and 1 from Asia. And that gives you a feel of how the Think Aorta campaign quickly went global as other countries realized they had the same problem of misdiagnosis and delay when patients have aortic dissection. And we have tremendous worldwide support now for the campaign, which is saving lives all around the world. So we're all volunteers. We're a registered charity. We don't have any paid staff. We don't have any offices. All of our funds come from generous donations. And we don't spend our money on anything except things that benefit patients directly. So we don't pay for advertising to get more donations. We don't give money to the NHS. We spend the money on very focused activities that benefit patients. And just so that you can understand what that looks like, the things we focus on are patient and family support. So we have this huge online community now that is there 24/7, providing support for patients and families. There's about 1,100 people in it talking about aortic dissection all day long. It's an invaluable lifeline. We also run events. The top left picture is an event we ran at Bart's Hospital. It was a patient day. The chap in the scrubs on the left is Professor Ramu, my good friend, who is the head of aortic surgery at Bart's. And the lady at the front in the green top is his aortic specialist nurse, Lerka Ghosh. We love our aortic specialist nurses. The lady who came up with this concept of aortic specialist nurses, Emma Hope, about 10 years ago at Southampton, pioneered the concept. And she's now retired from the NHS and has joined the charity as our aortic specialist nurse. So our members can have appointments with her, talk about their condition. Aortic specialist nurses are great at follow-up after an aortic dissection, and they're great at monitoring, referring patients for genetics, and generally advising those kind of things. So most of the big aortic centers now have appointed an aortic specialist nurse, and that's something we really welcome. They're making a great difference to patient care, and I know some of them are watching tonight, so thank you guys for what you do. Patients told us that when they leave hospital with an aortic dissection, there's no information. Nobody's ever heard of this thing. You know, I often hear it. Somebody says, this thing nearly killed me and I'd never heard of it before. And so we produced the definitive handbook to aortic dissection. It's called Aortic Dissection, the Patient Guide. It's a 96-page handbook written by patients, for patients, illustrating everything you need to know after an aortic dissection. And we, as a charity, made a commitment that we would print enough of these that every person in the UK who has an aortic dissection every year receives one before they leave hospital. And we have a distribution partner, Terumo Aortic, who send them out to all the aortic centres. And actually, we print about 5,000 of those a year. But you can also download them from the website. So if you're interested in reading it, there's a PDF on the website that you can look at. The
Fantastic.
second to last thing that we do, you've mentioned it already, really, Nigel, is the Think Aorta campaign. So Think Aorta is about improving diagnosis. It's about raising awareness and correcting the old thinking about this disease so that people who see patients know what to do. And we launched that campaign in partnership with the Royal College of Emergency Medicine, the Royal College of Radiologists, and 2 of the surgical societies back in 2018. We're just over the moon, really, that there is now an audit from the heart surgeons that shows that in the last 9 years, the number of people having surgery for what we call a type A dissection is up 63%. And that has been, and that's been attributed by the auditors to Aortic Dissection Awareness and the Think Aorta campaign. So if you look at that, that's over 300 people a year having surgery in the UK who weren't having surgery before. We've got more to do, but Think Aorta works, and that's why up to date about 20 countries around the world have taken it and implemented it in their countries. So this poster that you're looking at the moment behind me is available in the native language of 50% of the world's population, 4 billion people. And we've got the other half of the world still to go.
That's fantastic. I mean, you're doing incredible work. So just kind of touching a little bit on how you came to know about Mike's challenge. Can you tell us a bit about how that came about and how, as a result of that, that's positively impacted the work you do?
Sure. So Mike found us, I think, after the tragic death of his mum, and he found us and found Think Aorta, and came to us and said, I'm thinking of doing this crazy project, and we embraced that really and put a little team around him and said, we would love for you to do that. It's great that you're going to raise awareness. It's great that you're going to raise funds for charities, but we would support you anyway, because it sounds like as a kayaker, it's the right thing for you to do to honor your mum's memory and as part of the grieving process, really. And it's important to find something that is your thing. So we were very keen to support Mike in doing that. We put a little team there, branded his boat, supported him with some materials, had some chats about logistics and planning. And then as he went around the UK, we were following him. Lots of our people were following him online, but some people actually made journeys out to different parts along the coast to meet and encourage him and take him a packet of donuts. I've never seen anybody eat a packet of donuts so fast. So that's how we found him. In terms of what it's done for us, two things really. Clearly, the funds that he raised are enough to give every patient in the UK a patient guide for the next 2 years, or to fund the launch of Think Aorta in another country. So those are really significant things that he's helped us to achieve. And I think as well as a community, we're very inspired, motivated. I think we recognized in Mike a fellow pilgrim on a difficult journey. All of us who've survived aortic dissections and those of us who lost somebody are on this challenging journey every single day. And we recognize that Mike was putting him through what you're going to see him do tonight, put himself through that. And we could really identify with that. So we recognized a fellow pilgrim, and he's our hero, quite frankly. And he's also, will always be a part of our aortic dissection family. Mike, we love you very much. And I can't really convey in words how much we appreciate what you've done for our community.
That is fantastic. I mean, I think hero is very apt to describe Mike, and all of the work that Aortic Dissection Awareness has done is nothing short of phenomenal. So how can people follow what you're doing, and where can they and how can they support your work?
Okay, great. So the name of the charity is Aortic Dissection Awareness UK and Ireland. We have a website, which you'll have seen on my slides, and I think it's coming up there. That's great. We are on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on X. We're on Instagram, Aortic Dissection Awareness. So you can follow us there and find out what we're doing. There's a lot going on. If you'd like to download some of our resources, go to the website. If you'd like to donate to the charity, go to the website. There's an online donation facility. If you're a patient and you're looking for support, or very relatively looking for support, we have this online Facebook group called Aortic Dissection Buddies UK. So it's a private group, but you can request to join that and become part of our supportive community. And it's a wonderful thing.
That is brilliant. Thank you so much, Gareth. That was informative and inspiring. So thank you so much for taking the time out to be with us today. And all the best to you, your organization, and the work you're continuing to do.
Thanks, Nigel.
And joining me now is Catherine Fowler, trustee from Aortic Dissection Charitable Trust. Now, Catherine's background is incredibly distinguished. She received an honour from the British Citizen Awards at the Palace of Westminster for her outstanding contribution to healthcare across the UK. In 2015, sadly, Catherine's father lost his life due to a misdiagnosed aortic dissection. Now, this led to the launch of a petition and awareness campaign urging the NHS and HSE to implement changes across 4 key pillars. So that's policy, diagnostics, education, and processes. She's been a tireless campaigner for improved outcomes for dissection patients. She also co-founded the Aortic Dissection Charitable Trust in 2020, and we're lucky to speak to her now. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us. How have you been?
There's lots to do, but it's fantastic to be here with you and the team this evening as you launch Mike's documentary. I mean, that in itself, I think, is an absolutely incredible achievement, documenting his journey and his experience along the way. So yeah, it's great to be here with you all this evening.
That's wonderful. And, you know, if you can start by giving us a little bit of background into Aortic Dissection Charitable Trust and some of the key events that kind of led to you co-founding it, and what you've been able to focus on and some of the changes you've been able to make.
Sure, absolutely, Nigel. If we can share some slides, as they say, a picture paints 1,000 words. So if you can help guide me through as I share our story and our experience. I mean, first of all, I just want to say a huge congratulations to Mike. I mean, it's just such an epic achievement what he has done. Kayaking 2,000 miles around the British Isles, paddling with a real purpose. And I really stand with him in his grief and his passion to shape a safer future for people who are impacted by aortic dissection. And my deepest sympathies really are with Mike and his family, having lost his mother, Caroline. I can really relate to his pain and to his passion. As you say, I lost my own father, Tim Fleming, 10 years ago to a misdiagnosed aortic dissection. And he too paid the ultimate price with his life. On the next slide, it just shows really a bit of a projection into the future. It's so sad and shocking, really, that their experience isn't unique. As you mentioned, in the UK, 2,000 people lose their life to an aortic dissection every year. But the research also tells us that if the status quo remains the same, by 2050, 4,000 people will lose their life to this condition unnecessarily. And grief, I think, can really provide us all with a relentless drive and a passion to make our loved ones' death and their life really count. And like Mike, I had to channel my pain and my loss. And when I lost my dad, there wasn't a charity for aortic dissection in the UK. And I knew that this was something that I needed to change and that I really wanted to give my energy to. So I was proud to co-found and now chair the Aortic Dissection Charitable Trust. It's the first charity in the UK that's completely dedicated to aortic dissection. We're all about uniting patients, families, and indeed the medical community around a central mission of improving diagnosis and outcomes, supporting those that are living with and also those that are bereaved by aortic dissection. If we pop onto the next slide, it really kind of shares a little bit around how we go about this. So our mission focuses on 3 key strategic pillars. So education and policy change, so that we can have an impact on the here and now. And we also have a lot of focus on research, and this is all about shaping a safer future. And so the results that have been achieved in the 4 short years, I think that really absolutely underlines the need for a charity to lead the charge on the much needed change. Our education resources for the medical community have reached over 1 million learners across the world to date. Our support resources for patients and families have been utilised over 30,000 times. And we've worked with hospitals to drive change. One particular project that I want to call out is with the Royal Hull Infirmary. And in this project, we really showed the art of the possible when it comes to diagnosis. And this work went on to win the Health Service Journal Award for Patient Safety in 2024. Sadly, diagnosis isn't the only problem. There are huge gaps in follow-up for patients, and we've been lobbying for new policy and new pathways. And these have been instrumental in driving change in this area. So amongst our achievements in this space is the agreement from NHS England to develop an elective pathway. And this will standardise the follow-up for patients living with aortic dissection. We know that our work is on the right track, but we know that we really need to bring this policy from the page to the patient. And we believe that aortic nurses are going to be fundamental to this. But unfortunately, here in the UK, there are very few nurses. And to bridge this gap, we're now funding aortic nurses. This year, we're very proud to be doing that. And we'll be announcing our first grants for this later this year. And also through our community fundraising so far, in the last 4 years, we've awarded 9 research grants, which is a fantastic achievement. So if we move on to the next slide, I mean, really, Mike, we're incredibly in awe of your achievement, and I can't thank you enough, and the community can't thank you enough for just allowing us to be part of your journey. We're delighted that you selected for your funding to go towards 2 research projects, and they will be in memory of your mother, Caroline. So the first project that's benefited from your fundraising is researching into a biomarker. And if that project is successful, it's going to result in a simple blood test which will diagnose aortic dissection. And the second project that you selected is investigating health inequalities for women in aortic dissection. So your mother's death will not be in vain. You're making an incredible difference, and it's going to change the life and outcomes for so many other people. So I really just want to thank you, Mike, for lending your power, your support, your passion, and your story, Pilgrims of the Tide, to the Aortic Dissection Charitable Trust. Together, we're going to be the difference, and we're going to shape a safer future for everybody who's impacted by this condition. So I can't thank you enough for what you've done and for working with the charity so far. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
That is truly inspiring, and thank you, Catherine. Obviously, this is an incredibly personal mission for you, and the work that that you have done and continue to do is nothing short of inspiring. So thank you for all that you've done, and thank you and your entire organization for all the support you've lent to the production of our film, and in helping to continue to get the word out about this condition and how we can improve outcomes for people that suffer from it. So how can people keep up to date with what you guys are doing and any projects that you're running? How can people support you?
And there's lots of ways to get involved, Nigel. So if people want to keep up to date with what you're doing, you can subscribe. We have a newsletter that we share, updates of all of our work across the year. But if people want to get involved, they can come and volunteer for the organisation. They can join our research panel. We have over 800 volunteers who have expressed an interest both in research and also to support our education initiatives. That can be involved, simply in responding to a survey or getting involved in a research project itself. So we'd love for people to get involved. We're really open to new ideas and listening to what people want as well. So a lot of the resources that you'll see on our website have actually been ideas that have been generated from the community themselves. So whether it's from the medical community, from patients and family members and bereaved relatives, it's their suggestions that have really shaped everything that the charity has done. Indeed, it's patients and families who've shaped the mission of the charity itself. So we're all about listening. We're all about co-creation and innovating, because together we're stronger. So we would really welcome anyone's involvement, as little or as much as you want to do. And equally, there's lots of exciting challenges that you can get involved with. You'll see on our website a lot of adventures that people do to raise funds, probably not quite as challenging as paddling 2,000 miles around the British Isles. But there's lots of runners, swimmers, walkers, that if you want to raise funds and raise awareness, we'll be delighted to support your efforts.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Catherine. And thank you to Gareth as well for both of you sharing your incredible stories, the amazing work you've been doing, the people that you're helping. I don't think it can be overstated how much good you guys are doing out there. So keep doing what you're doing. We'll continue to support you, and I'm sure many other people out there will as well. Right. The film should now be live. I think a few of you may already have been heading over to the link to start watching it. We are going to take a 35-minute break on this end to give you a chance to give the film a watch. When you come back, we are going to be speaking to the man himself, Mike Lambert. He's going to tell us all about his journey, share his story with us in greater detail, and we can't wait for it. So please do head over to the film now. As mentioned before, the link to the film is in the description of this video. Alternatively, just search on YouTube Pilgrim of the Tides or Fresh Art Project, and you'll find it very, very easily. So we look forward to seeing you back here in 35 minutes, and we will continue with this amazing journey. Thank you so much to all of you. thank you for coming back and joining us for the second part of our live stream. We hope that you were able to watch the film, take it on board, really feel the emotion and all of the dedication that Mike put into this challenge. It is absolutely a pleasure to be able to talk to Mike about everything that he put into this and everything that drove him to do something so incredible. And Mike, thank you so much for being with us tonight. After having watched the film again and come back over it, how are you feeling?
Oh, to be honest, well, I just want to say thank you to everyone that turned up. But I actually had to put my phone on airplane mode because so many people would messaging me so many lovely things about the film, and quite frankly, it's quite emotional. And so, yeah, all I can say is, thank you, Nigel and Zareen, for making it, and thank you to everyone for turning up. Yeah, that's a little bit heavy for me, to be honest.
Yeah, that's more understandable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the film aside, I think there was there were a number of instances where in the middle of filming, you and I would have a number of talks about what you were going through at the time and what certain things meant to you. And I think different parts of the trip affected you in ways you weren't quite expecting. And I think it turned into a different kind of trip than you set out to have, essentially.
Absolutely. I mean, like when I first made the decision to take on the circumnavigation, it was in the aftermath of reading a book called The Art of Resilience by Ross Edgley, and that book is essentially his book on his, I think it was a 152-day swim around the UK, and he basically wrote this book about that trip, and he combined sports science and Stoic philosophy and Buddhism, and he integrated all these topics in such a way that it transcended his achievement, and it really resonated with me what he did and why he did it, and it just felt natural to take on the circumnavigation in light of what he did. But when I took it on, it was all about trying to do the hardest thing that I could envisage doing. At no point did I consider actually the psychological implication. Well, I knew it was going to be hard. I knew I would suffer. I knew I'd physically suffer. I knew I'd mentally suffer. I knew I'd suffer in absolutely every single way. But I didn't really entertain the idea of what a journey like this would have done for my grief, because I knew I'd be spending a lot of time alone. But I just, I knew intellectually what that would be doing, but I didn't necessarily understand the impact of it. And essentially, it ended up being the way everything panned out. It was perfect, because it gave me 2 months, 350 hours on the sea, mostly on my own, no headphones because they kept breaking, pumping into headwinds, everything going wrong, electrics going wrong, headwinds, skin breaking down. I was being tested in so many ways that it put everything under the microscope. And it took me to my breaking point, but that's exactly where I felt in retrospect that I needed to be in order to give myself permission. I don't think anyone should really need to find themselves needing permission to move through their grief journey, but for me, that's what I needed to do. I needed to do something. I needed to suffer. I needed to get through this to give myself permission to move into a different stage of my grief. And so that was something that I didn't consider when I initially took this trip on, but it was a very painful but very happy byproduct of what I did.
And how long had it been since you'd last kayaked when you took on this challenge? And how long had it been?
Yeah. So I retired. I essentially gave up. I trained hard enough and did well enough to represent Great Britain at under 23 200-meter sprint, which is a good level, but I'm not sure it's worthy of the time retirement. But I stopped paddling at like 23 and essentially committed myself to retraining from a builder to a physio. So I entered the world of academia, then full-time work, and drinking pints and eating kebabs. And so I got pretty overweight and unfit. And so when I was at the point of making the decision to do this, I was at the unfittest I think I have literally ever been in my life. But at the time, the record stood at 67 days, and I kind of felt like it was a far-fetched but doable task. And then, because it was such a big, fundraiser to undertake, I gave myself 18 months to train for it, to get my body in shape. And in the interim period, Dougal Glacier, who he's a type 1 diabetic, but an incredible endurance athlete, undertook the circumnavigation and took it from a 67-day challenge to a 40-day world record. And because I was doing it because it was hard, that was no reason to quit, but it meant that it completely I had to completely redefine my training and, where I started to where I felt like I needed to be in order to be a actual, to be taken seriously with my attempt. Required a tremendous amount of hard work just to get on the start line.
So, I mean, it seems like the point of deciding to do it, to actually getting in the boat, that's a journey in and of itself.
Yeah.
At what point did sort of any thoughts of doubt creep into your mind? And when they did creep into your mind, what is it that you did to kind of push them back or overcome them?
Doubt was in my mind permanently. It actually set up a permanent residence in my mind. I actually think it's impossible to do something like this without doubt. I don't think anyone ever goes into an endeavor like this without any doubt. I think it's about, to be honest, there's probably a degree of denial. I think there's also a degree of acceptance. And, it's all about, accepting what you can control and, accepting what you can't control, and then trying to control what you can. And for me, I wasn't controlling the controllables. So I actually, because of, trying to train for this around full-time work was really intense. So there was a degree of denial, if I'm being honest, in that corner. And then there was a degree of acceptance and, the weather, tides, things you can't control go into there. And then, things you can control go into, like the boat, the equipment, your training. And it's an ongoing process. It's like shoveling snow when it's still snowing. It's not something that you ever, I've addressed the doubts, we're done. They keep coming back. You keep going, you keep going, you keep going.
Yeah. And in the film, I mean, one of the sort of happy accidents that happened when we were filming that we were able to actually put into the film is when you met up with Robin Ayres.
Yes.
In Glenelg. Part of that conversation, I think that one of the things that really stood out for me when you were talking at the time is he seemed to be a source of inspiration in terms of looking difficulty in the face and deciding to overcome it. How much did your experience with Robin factor into how you approached the journey? And, how much did that have an impact on how you then looked at each obstacle that came up in your way, even as you were training for it, and your decision to overcome that?
Yeah, so I've known Robin since I was probably 15 or 16. And then when I was working with him from the ages of 17 to I think about 22, we were probably seeing, I was probably seeing Robin more than he saw his wife, Ali. Like we'd spend that much time together. And it's funny because like at the time when he's teaching me all these lessons, I'm thinking just like leave off, let me have an easy day. But when you stop and you reflect, you're like, oh, actually, Robin's been a tremendous influence in my life, and watching his approach to not only training but building, and also how he integrated the two to get to the Seoul Olympics. When so many other people were getting easier rides as full-time athletes, it was hugely inspiring, and there is so much that I've taken on from Robin through osmosis, like lessons that I didn't want to learn but I've been forced to learn through him. They're absolutely applied to the trip. And between him and my mum, I learned a lot about resilience from my mum as well. And so, these are two massive sources of inspiration to me during massively formative years that, I've been able to fall back on during the trip.
Yeah. And speaking of your mum, I think she very much factored into you choosing kayaking as a means of taking on this challenge and raising awareness around aortic dissection. Can you talk a little bit about the association between her and kayaking for you?
Yeah, well, so I mean, the original association with kayaking is through my next door neighbours, the Robinsons. They took me down Basingstoke Canal, and I started off my journey in little plastic playboats on a canal that's probably not about 10 meters wide, so it's about as far away from the sea as you can get. And as I kind of got a little bit more committed into that, I got into the racing, and then as I got a little bit more stuck into the racing, Mum started to get more involved because I was training more and more and more. So from the ages of 14 to 17, we would be driving all around the country down to Basingstoke Canal, Way Kayak Club in Guildford. She'd be cycling on the riverbank with Bruce, the miniature schnauzer, supporting me in my training. And she was, without her, there's no way I could have pursued this hobby. No way I could have pursued this hobby. So she was, and again, this is one of the things, within grief. Not only have I lost my mum, but I've lost my biggest supporter, and the biggest supporter that I'll ever have, and the biggest supporter that hopefully anyone ever has, is their mum or their dad. And so losing a figure like that is really, really difficult.
And without going into the details of how it happened, because obviously we've covered that exhaustively. I guess I want to say the circumstances around how powerless you felt, just because of the nature of how the dissection happened, and the fact that, as we talked about with Catherine and with Gareth earlier, the misdiagnosis level is so high. With that kind of a situation, it's so difficult to affect any kind of change in that kind of a situation. Was that a key factor in how hard you needed the challenge to be? And did the fact that you took on something that difficult relate somewhat to trying to feel some semblance of control over success or failure, essentially?
Yeah, so absolutely. My personal experience with observing my mum dying, essentially, as brutal as it is, I mean, that's essentially what it was. When I first saw her in hospital, she was cognizant, in a lot of pain, but still there, so to speak. And by the time I got there, I watched her deteriorate firsthand. And the thing that not only that's it doesn't matter whether there are doctors and nurses doing the app, and I do think they did their best, but it doesn't matter whether there are doctors or nurses doing absolutely everything correctly. That's always going to be difficult. I think what was particularly hard in our situation was that it was getting ignored, and the barrier between what my mum experienced and for her to give, or for her to be given the best chance of being able to survive this condition, was essentially the knowledge and the ability for a clinician to even consider an aortic dissection as a diagnosis. And so I saw this as so preventable, and so there was such a need for things to change, because there are treatment pathways, there are screening pathways. This is a treatable condition. The main thing that is killing people is a lack of awareness around misdiagnosis, or not even a diagnosis at all. And so I couldn't accept that without doing absolutely everything that I could to try and address it, because what I tried to do on the day that mum turned up in A&E, unfortunately, was not enough.
And this wasn't your first experience, or your family's first experience with aortic dissection. Your grandmother had a dissection prior to that. What was the outcome there, and how was her treatment different to what your mum received?
Yeah, so my mum's mum, so my nan, my maternal grandmother, had an aortic dissection in 2001, and she actually dissected in her GP surgery. So in some regards was just unbelievably fortunate. And so the GP contacted the paramedics and went straight into the local A&E and had surgery. So we're talking over 20 years ago, and she survived. She made that through. She made it through it because she had timely surgery, and went on to live, I think, another between 12 and 15 years after that surgery. And yeah, basically what mum had and what my grandma had were exactly the same. And there are a number of variables that would contribute to a different outcome, but one of the things that was starkly different to my mum's dissection was my nan's expedience to care.
And how much did you then? Was the majority of what you knew about aortic dissections, did that happen after your nan had that experience, or was it following your mum's death that you really researched exactly what a dissection is and how it can affect people?
No, so my mum was a nurse by trade, and I'm a physiotherapist by trade, so we kind of always had a bit of a healthcare bond, and we would talk about because one of the memories my mum would used to talk about with me was me massaging foot cream into my nan when I was 10 years old or whatever, while she was recovering in hospital. And so, she would regularly tell me about that story and why she was there, and, that it was from an aortic dissection. And so I was absolutely, and the rest of the family, my aunties, my sisters, we were all aware that there was this history of aortic dissection. And so when mum collapsed, and my partner at the time raised, "Oh, do you think it could be an aortic dissection?" It was raised really, really early in her care.
And with that being raised so early and then not being followed up on, that clearly goes into what Gareth and Catherine were talking about, right? With it not being considered as the cause of the kinds of symptoms that you prevent with. What did you learn about some of the roadblocks to actually diagnosing a dissection, and why it's so underdiagnosed? Did you learn much about that?
Yeah. So it's considered a rare disease, and and basically because it's considered rare and it's considered do you know what? When day two, when I turned up in Portland Bill Beach, I bumped into a group of medical students, and I asked them, what are they taught about aortic dissections? And they basically said, you know, if one presents an A&E, we'd be lucky to catch it first of all, and if we did, you know, the pathway is cross your fingers and hope there's a vascular surgeon on call. And so, you know, it's perceived to be a rare condition, which in the scheme of things, from like diabetes, heart disease, it is, but it is far more common than people think. And actually, one of the things that that I don't think is doing the aortic dissection charities any favors at the moment is that most of the people that get diagnosed or that die from an aortic dissection, they don't actually know that they've died from an aortic dissection. They're just in the postmortem, they're like heart, you know, died of heart disease or whatever. And so I think it's far more common than people think. But it's just about changing the preconceptions and trying to get people to think aorta from university and then take that onwards. And so, you know, the real key here is getting students to learn about it, getting A&E staff to learn about it, and paramedics to learn about it, because these are the people that will make the difference ultimately.
Yeah. And that being the case, actually, what you probably got a lot of opportunities to talk to people at different stages of the trip about it, right? I mean, it's I would imagine you'd present a bit of an unexpected sight for people just kind of taking a stroll on the beach and then a guy just kind of pulling up in a kayak. So that probably gave you the opportunity to have a few more conversations. I mean, roughly how many times were you able to talk to somebody about what you were doing and why? And also within those conversations, did you find that those people either had some form of experience with it or knew somebody who had an experience with aortic dissections?
Yeah, so it was bizarre how many people had experience of an aortic dissection firsthand or secondhand. And like I said, this happened from day one. I actually bumped into a surgeon who I think had mentored Zareen, your wife, on Swanage Beach. So day one, I'm meeting someone with experience in aortic dissection. Day two was the medical students on the beach, and then, you know, day five, but like being put up in this neurosurgeon's house who was aware of aortic dissection as well, and how and, you know, more than that, was aware that, you know, cardiac diseases in women are tragically misdiagnosed far more than they are in men. And so this was a theme that kind of kept cropping up all around the country. And, you know, it was the logos on the boat that instigated the conversation. And, you know, hopefully the charities have got a few more members in their ranks, because they saw the boat.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fingers crossed that is the case. I mean, I think with campaigns in general, you know, they come in kind of an established kind of format, whether it's printed media, posters, adverts, that kind of thing, social media campaigns. Having a face-to-face conversation with somebody that's been affected by the subject of what is being spoken about is a completely different proposition entirely. How often do you think about what the knock-on effect of you having those face-to-face conversations might be?
To be honest, like, it's hard to say. To be honest, I don't really consider the impact that I've had. I just feel like I've kayaked around the country and then, you know, done. And if one person benefits from that, then I consider that absolutely worthwhile. But yeah, I just hope that it's made a difference.
I'm quite confident that we'll have. You know, and hopefully, you know, as the saying goes, cliched as it might sound, if one person has been helped, then, you know, hopefully it's worth it. I mean, what was the hardest part of, physically speaking, what was the hardest part of the journey for you? I mean, I know you hit a lot of roadblocks in terms of the weather and some failing equipment and all that kind of thing. What really made you really stop and think, can I actually do this?
Every single day of the first 2 weeks of the trip. No, I mean, like, I really struggled. I absolutely struggled with the first 2 weeks. Well, no, it was more than that. I absolutely struggled for the first 1,000 miles, if I'm being honest. But the two most physically demanding days of the trip were crossing the Bristol Channel from Welcome to Marlow Sands via Lundy Island. That was a 110 kilometer open sea crossing into headwinds and inadvertently through a live firing range as well. And then I pitched up on Marlow Sands, which is featured in the film. Had about 5 hours in my tent there and in so much pain. You know, when you get off the water, it's not like, oh, put your tent up, go and have a nice sleep. You put your tent up, you crawl into bed, and everything throbs. And you know, at one point, it almost feels like the whole body is just like pulsing because your hands are torn apart. This is a dislocated shoulder, so you know it felt crap the whole time. And had about 5 hours of sleep on the pebbly beach before I needed to get back on the water and cross over to Ireland before a storm was coming in later that evening. And, you know, we only made land 2 hours prior to that storm coming in. So wow. it was really tight. It was really tight, not pleasant.
I mean, there's so much obviously that we just didn't catch in the film. I mean, there's tons that we filmed and then didn't put in the film, and then stuff that we just missed as well. And you know, you were really great at capturing your state of mind at particular points and what you were thinking about at particular points of the trip. What was it that you found out about yourself that surprised you, taking on something so huge?
Do you know what? Like, my fundamental belief on our very human nature is that we're very adaptable. And so anything that I discover about myself, I don't think is a permanent trait. And there are things that I did in the build up to the circumnavigation and stuff that I've done during the circumnavigation that I would probably really struggle to do now. So when I consider my personality and my character, I think I am a product of human nature. And the only thing that has been different between maybe me 5 years ago and me now, or me a year ago to this day, was that I really wanted to do something, and there was something that I really believed in. And so I showed myself that I could pursue something that was very difficult at a great cost to myself.
And how, and we haven't talked much about this actually, but how did it impact your family as well? Because obviously your sisters, your aunts, the Robinsons, they were all, you know, instrumental in sharing the story that we depicted. But obviously you went on a massive journey, but you know, they very much went with you in a number of ways. What ultimately was the impact on them?
Oh, do you know what? Like, oh my God, everyone reacted differently, but ultimately, and I so love my family. I love my aunties. I love my sisters, but and I'm sure Sarah won't mind me for saying, but I needed to cut her out because it was taking a massive toll on her, to be honest. I had a call from her on day 3 that was really quite emotional because, you know, she saw my tracker in the middle of the ocean at midnight, which is where I was, to be fair, but she thought maybe I was in trouble, and then called me whilst I was in Portland Bill, you know, asking me whether, you know, what am I going to do if this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens, and I think it put a huge degree of strain on my sisters in particular. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where arguably in some ways it may in fact have been harder for them to have coped with my journey rather than it was for me, because all they're seeing is a dot stalling in the middle of the ocean whilst I'm here knowing that I'm just going very slowly.
I mean, not that the stress on us was anywhere near the same, but we had a few sleepless nights kind of watching that dot not move for a couple of days.
Well, do you know what?
Why is it?
Probably the worst thing was and again, you know, it's funny because lots of people have asked me to do this, that, and the other in the aftermath of this, talk about the trip and how do you prepare and and if I give everyone an absolutely candid, well, actually, what was quite funny, whenever anyone would see me on the trip and actually see my process, they're like, how the hell have you made it this far? But basically, when I was in Lambert, which is the top of the Moray Firth, I needed to cross over the Moray Firth to Cullen, which was about a 73-kilometre open sea crossing. You know, through wind farms, through offshore oil rigs, and I actually left my tracker on the beach, and I left my portable charger on the beach as well.
No way.
Yeah, which is like, I don't think that did anything but anyone's anxiety. The best thing about that was that those two things had been picked up by two separate people, and it ended up in two separate places. And so it was left to Scott Youngson, who was the RNLI guy that I met up in Thurso, who absolutely made my stay up there incredible. And him and his brother and Gary and Ken, both of Penland Canoe Club and Thurso RNLI, made my trip amazing. But it was Scott that was then on this detective mission to find my my tracker and then the portable charger, and he actually managed to find both of them, get them on a fishing boat that was going to Fraserburgh, get them dropped off at midnight through Fraserburgh, who again, you know, Vic and the guys there were incredible, through their letterbox, and then so I had them when I was leaving Fraserburgh to Aberdeen. But then what I did is I ended up leaving a different charging bank back in Fraserburgh. So it was it, like, your brain literally falls out your ass a little bit when you're
keeping us all on our toes with those ones, honestly. Yeah. We actually are starting to get a few questions through the comments. So Finn is very keen to know what you ate during the challenge. I know we generally started a bit of a tradition of whenever we met up, getting a bit of a Domino's. But general diet from sort of like stop to stop to stop? How did you kind of subsist?
So I actually went to Precision Fuel and Hydration before the trip to get some advice on nutrition. And if I was to summarize all of their advice, they basically said, if it is beige, eat it. And I think I took that and went a little bit too far with it, particularly when I was up in Scotland, because they were deep frying everything from Mars bars to Cadbury eggs to cottage pies. They were literally, they weren't shy to throw anything in a deep fat fryer, and I wasn't shy about buying it and eating it either. And so it would probably, my diet to get around would leave a lot to be. Well, like there was nutritionally dense, but calories were the main thing. And I was probably averaging about 6,000 or 7,000 calories a day, and so I didn't actually lose any weight on the trip, which is testament to a thorough nutritional plan, let's say.
Oh, it's interesting you say that, actually, because I was talking to somebody about the film probably about a week ago, and they obviously were massively moved by your journey and everything you've gone through, but he noticed that you seemed to lose weight between the beginning of the film and the end of it.
Oh, really? It's funny because I was met on the beach in I think it was Joss Bay by one of my friends, Pat Terry, who basically Dean Terry is my mate, Pat Terry is his dad. And one of the first things he said to me is like, Mike, I thought you were losing. I thought you'd lost a lot of weight until you took your top off, and then like maybe you haven't.
And yeah, so I mean, how did you just kind of manage? Did you just kind of feed on the fly, as it were, or did you kind of have an idea as to the kind of thing that would give you the most amount of energy, or you know, the optimum level of nutrition that you'd need to or calories that you need to burn through for the next leg?
I mean, I think so it depended on the leg. If I was doing a big day, anything about 80k plus, particularly anything open sea, I'd want to have a 3,000 calories on my person. So that was a 300 gram carb gel. It was bananas, it was saurine, it was pancakes, it was cereal bars, pork pies even. It was whatever I could get my hands on that was calorie dense. And so that was it. And then I would either try and structure the day so that I'd either have a very big breakfast or a very big dinner. But, you know, after I got a chest infection from Thurso, I actually was starting to have like almost this autonomic response to breakfast where I couldn't eat without breaking out into nausea and cold sweats. And so all down that East Coast, I was struggling to keep food down. It was horrible. I think sometimes people ask me about the nutrition. They're like, "Oh, it's so lovely. You can eat whatever you want," and that is so true. But you need to eat a quantity of it that you're taking yourself to the point of nearly being physically sick. Because if you don't eat to that level, then you were just going to blow out in the middle of your paddle.
And how did that then equate to your energy levels from stop to stop? One would imagine you'd be obviously more tired at the end of it than you were at the beginning, but did you kind of hit a bit of a rhythm in terms of how much energy you felt you needed or how much you would burn from one leg to another? And did that get sort of better or worse as you went on?
Yeah, so the energy requirements went down. So I was requiring, like for a full day in the water to begin with, it was 6 liters, 3 liters of carb drink, a liter of carb and electrolyte, and then like 2 liters of water. And I would get through that every day on top of a 300 gram carb gel and various other bits and pieces of food. But actually, as I kind of, my nutrition went a little bit awry in the west coast of Scotland, but from the north coast down, I was actually finding that I was having less and less and less. And actually from Betty Hill to Thurso, I mean, I was feeling sick that day, but essentially I think it was about a 44 kilometer paddle, only with water and a square cereal bar. And that was sufficient for my body at that point.
And one of the things I know happened quite frequently was that people would kind of show up at various points to kind of meet you as you were coming in, and a number of people would have food for you and all that kind of thing. Just kind of veering from food to that. What did it mean to you to have people, some people that you didn't know, many people you didn't, just kind of meet you and tell you what your journey meant to them?
Yeah, so I mean, I took this trip on as a solo kayak around the UK, and for the most part, when I was on the water, it was that. But as soon as I got off it, I was met by an incredible amount of support. You know, Harry, Lewis, and co down in Cornwall, and then you know John and Jenny, Liam, the Egans, all those guys up in Ireland. They were like, you know, their support went way beyond what I could have ever have expected of them. And then, you know, I was on my own up until Thurso, and I think anyone that's familiar with my journey will know how much of an impression Thurso made on me, through the generosity of Susan letting me stay in her holiday home, to then the introduction to Scott, and then Gary, and then Ken, and seemingly the rest of the town. And then as soon as Scott was involved, that's when the RNLI was involved. And, you know, I met Lord Thurso, the Lord of Banffshire, Cullen RNLI, Ferrysborough RNLI, Bridlington RNLI. You know, these are the guys that all of these stations just went above and beyond for me. And, you know, when I talk about in the film that the record attempt would have denied me those experiences of meeting these guys and being in a position to accept the generosity of strangers, you know, I was so unbelievably lucky in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, because just talking to some of the people that I was able to interview as part of the production, you start to get a real picture of how deeply people get affected, even as survivors, how they get affected by having gone through an aortic dissection. You obviously are coming to this experience from a place of bereavement, but in doing so, without meaning to put too fine a point on it, you're coming to it as kind of a kind of beacon of inspiration to a certain extent. I'm not sure how often you think about that, but when that thought does kind of occur to you, when somebody like me, I suppose, brings it up, how does it make you feel to know that you've impacted people on that level?
That's very difficult to comprehend. All I know is that, you know, today, putting this film out there and receiving the messages that people have been sending me on my phone that I've literally had to switch off, was just incredibly emotional. And to be honest, I don't even know how to interpret that, but it does. I feel very privileged to be in this position ultimately, but I really don't see myself as an inspiration. I don't advocate for what I've done or how I've done it. I think the only thing that I would want people to take away from this side of things is that maybe not inspiration, but aspiration to do their own things and see that, you know, I've kind of done my thing. And, you know, there were so many reasons why I shouldn't have done it. And hope that they recognize that in my journey, but they use it to aspire to fulfill their own goals.
Yeah. And now you're kind of on the other side of that. And, you know, you don't have that next huge challenge in front of you, and you can kind of take a bit of time to decide what the next stage of your life is going to look like. One of the questions in the comments at the moment is from Wilf, who's asking, have you been able to continue paddling for enjoyment, or is the association still too painful?
Yeah, so 3 days after I finished my kayak, I was back at work, and then 6 days after, I was back on the water kayaking with friends on a Saturday morning down in Teddington at Royal Canoe Club. And, you know, if anything, this trip has made me like fall in love with kayaking again. Like I was saying, I had about a 10-year break of barely doing it. And this trip has made me realize how much the sport has given me. And so I was straight back in the boat.
That's amazing. I think, yeah, I mean, I hope at least for you that there are elements of this trip that you're able to take a certain amount of comfort from, or personal inspiration at the very least. I know you don't see yourself as an inspirational figure, but I hope you feel inspired by what you've discovered you are capable of. We've got another comment, a question in the comment from Alison Carl asking what your top 3 highlights of the journey were. I think it's a great question.
Oh, do you know what? Like, I actually haven't thought about top 3. So, or probably in chronological order. The crossing to like literally making it up on the beach of Rosslare in Ireland. That was a phenomenal feeling. Less than 24 hours or round about 24 hours prior to that, I was looking at completely surrendering the record attempt, not making the crossing to the Irish Sea and having to go up the Welsh coast. So being able to execute the 110k kilometer crossing and then 100k crossing to make it to Ireland was incredible. And then meeting John and Jenny on the beach at sunset, was just it was such a surreal experience. And then obviously the most important thing about making it to Ireland was getting a Guinness that evening, which I'm not that ashamed to say is what I thought about a lot on the crossing over to Ireland. So that was the first one. The second one was making it through the Pentland Firth and everything that was associated with that, meeting all the guys up in Thurso, having essentially a second home there. Thurso, I've got the Caithness flag flying at my fireplace. That's made such an impression. And then, finishing that last day has, got to be up there as one of the best days of my life.
That's fantastic. We have another question in the comments from Aziz, basically saying, Mike, what you've done, what you've achieved is remarkable. And have you ever considered being a motivational speaker?
Aziz, that is very kind of you. I actually, people, do you know what? A few people have asked me about this, but I think my brand of motivational speaking is probably all about raising or putting a spotlight on all the stuff that is hard and then doing it in spite of that. And I think that's sometimes a little bit of a depressing message to hear.
Yeah,
but I have to say I would love to do it. I would love to do it. I love working with people, and in my physiotherapy career, one of the things that I absolutely love about my job is working with people who are motivated to change. And quite often, the people that are seeking my help are in really, really difficult situations. But because they are motivated to change, you watch them undergo this incredible journey through their rehab, and being a part of that is an incredible privilege. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe motivational speaking. I'm not the one to judge. If you guys have been motivated, then fantastic. Maybe there is something there, but if not, I'm cracking on as a physio.
I think at this stage would be successful, whatever you put your mind to.
Thank you.
One of the last questions we're going to go to from the comments is from Matthew, who asked what the most scenic location was that you paddled through.
I would just say the whole of that. Oh my God. Do you know what? Something that I think maybe most of us take for granted is that the UK is a beautiful, beautiful place. We are spoiled from the Isle of Wight to Dorset to Cornwall to Devon to Pembrokeshire. Ireland, stunning. Northern Ireland, I never like Northern Ireland round the top near Cushenden is like an Irish Table Mountain. I never expected to see scenery like that in Northern Ireland. It took me back, actually. I was really surprised that Northern Ireland was so beautiful. And then I crossed over to the Isle of Islay. That speaks for itself. I think it's called the Queen of the Hebrides. It's a stunning, stunning island. And then Isle of Mull, again, beautiful. Iona, Staffa, Glenelg, stunning. Isle of Skye, beautiful. The whole of the west coast of Scotland. And then you get to the north and you're met with these these massive, massive cliffs around Cape Wrath that are so intimidating yet beautiful. And then you get through there and you got the golden sandy beaches of Betty Hill. You get to Thurso, you got Dunnet Head, the most northerly part of the UK. Again, so unbelievably stunning. And the Pentland Firth, John O'Groats. I could literally go on, and you know, you get down the east coast and people think the trip is over, but there is so much beauty from Stonehaven to Whitby to Norfolk, Joss Bay. So much of it is so gorgeous, and I think we take, not necessarily I don't want to project this on you guys, but for me, I absolutely took the UK for granted until I did this, and actually, as much of a cop out as it is, the whole thing is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly attest to a number of the locations, particularly along the north coast of Scotland. I missed you in Whitby, but caught up with you in Hartlepool, and you know, there's so much of what I saw just driving up there. Never mind actually getting to the beaches, was just absolutely stunning. And I think you're right. I think we do take for granted just how beautiful a country it is.
Yeah, it's special.
You know, I think, yeah, absolutely. I think there's something symbolic in you having been through what you've been through and discovered something so beautiful in the process. And me personally, I had a bit of a transformative experience making this film, from you to meeting your sisters, your aunts, Joan and Sarah Robinson, Robin and Ali, a whole bunch of people that I otherwise wouldn't have met, and just seeing the varying levels of inspiration, of bravery, of openness, and of trust as well that you all that you're projected. And personally, I'm very, very thankful to all of you for it.
Well, I think no, I was going to say, like, I feel like I can speak on behalf of my family, my aunties, my cousins, my sisters, myself, and say, you know, it's been such a privilege having you guys, you and Zareen on board to create the film, to suffer through the hours of editing that is required to put something like that together. And, you know, I see this film as arguably the most important aspect of my trip, and hopefully starting to affect positive change in this space. So, no, I think it goes both ways. So thank you very much.
Bless you. And you have done something amazing. And I think people are going to want to keep up to date with what you do next. How can people follow you and hopefully be privy to the next adventure, should there be one?
Yes, so I think there are definitely going to be adventures on the horizon. Live, Laugh, Graft. Either Instagram or my website is the best place to kind of like follow along. There is a book being written on the trip, and that I'm seriously hoping the first draft is done. I'm hoping the book is going to be done by the autumn, maybe early winter. But if you want any updates about that, then follow along on Live, Laugh, Graft on Instagram predominantly, and on Twitter or X, or contact me via my website, which is livelaughgraft.com.
Fantastic. And there are links in the description if you want to follow Mike, if you want to follow Aortic Dissection Awareness UK and Ireland, if you want to follow Aortic Dissection Charitable Trust and find out more about what all of them are doing, you can get all the information you need from there. But my thanks to you, Mike, my thanks to Gareth and to Catherine, and my thanks to everybody who tuned in and watched and followed along with Mike's journey and have watched our film. Please do share this story. It is absolutely worth taking what Mike has been through and sharing it with others. You don't know who you're going to affect. You don't know who you're going to educate. It is absolutely essential to have more conversations around aortic dissection. And if nothing else, you can be as inspired by Mike's journey as we were. So thank you once again, Mike. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say, thank you, Nigel, and thank you everyone that has managed to stick on like absolute Trojans through this 2-hour event. So it's really appreciated. And like Nigel was saying, if you're able to engage in what we're doing, it'd be greatly appreciated. But thank you for everything you have all done so far. I can't tell you how much it means and how much I appreciate it, and how much I think my family appreciate it as well.
Thanks so much for that. And if anyone wants to stay up to date with anything coming out of the Fresh Heart Project platform, just go to freshheartproject.com. Please do like this video and make sure more people see it, and subscribe to the Fresh Heart Project's YouTube channel. Find us on the socials and stay up to date with the health journeys and stories that we'll be sharing. But in the meantime, all of you, take care of each other. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you soon.
Take care.